Zhang agreed, though with much reluctance. His pride seemed to have been humbled since their last meeting, looking to the safety of his platoon more than anything else. Arda almost couldn't understand why he would agree to take that far of a detour before returning to the safety of his home continent. The Imperialists outnumbered them 7-2, literally, so he could have just had the others pick up their rifles and threatened Arda and Blake for the location of North Cove. But he saw the exhaustion of the platoon and their overall disheartened spirits. They'd lost 6 people. They weren't ready to risk losing more. Arda couldn't be completely sure if that was the main reason or not, or if it was only part of the reason. He was just thankful Zhang Wu agreed to the deal. Blake pulled him aside after Zhang Wu returned to the makeshift camp that barely counted as a camp. Why Sector 6? In all honesty, Arda wasn't so sure himself. It was the deadliest sector in Dorzak during that time of the year. If anything, it should be a place they avoid. But coincidentally, it was the sector closest to Sector 8 by sea, and they had no way of transportation by land other than their bridge glider, which wouldn't be the most practical in their current state and location. That, plus, there was a tiny voice, an urge, like at Jogan Cliff. Something was telling him to go to Sector 6. Arda just felt like it was right. He supposed this could be called instinct, but that didn't explain why he had it in the first place. A side effect of a developing personality? What kind of personality was he developing if he was having these random instinctual urges? It didn't quite make sense to him. He knew next to nothing about Sector 6, except from what he overheard and the maps he looked at while in Cultus. Nothing about it was particularly appealing. According to the official maps, Sector 6 was a 50,000 square kilometer area, compared to Sector 8's 30,000 square kilometers. However, despite the extra 20,000 square kilometers of land, Sector 6 only had one city, while Sector 8 consisted of Cultus, North Cove, and another town in the southwest. That city was called Lucento, and used to be a major harbor and port for Dorzak before the apocalypse destroyed half of it. Towns surrounding Lucento were all reduced to flattened plains. The area around it and all along the southern coast of Dorzak were abandoned. Apart from Lucento, Sector 6 was basically a barren wasteland. Despite the official landmass to be 50,000 square kilometers, only 700 square kilometers could inhabit humans. In fact, in Dorzak, though the 10 sectors took up almost the entire continent, less than a third of it had any population at all. Unofficially, the giant, seemingly unending fields of unbearable freezing winters and scorching summers between the main cities of the 10 sectors were not considered to be a part of any of them. Just empty voids. Anyhow, all that just proves there was no reason for Arda to just suddenly want to go to such a place. Another explanation on why Arda might have this built-in urge could have something to do with the perpetual motion contraption, like the one at Jokin Cliff. Despite Arda's extensive knowledge, he still didn't quite understand how perpetual motion worked. Not the fundamentals of it, anyway. The fact that he found it along with the files about him, it didn't seem at all like a coincidence. Returning to Blake's question, Arda just shook his head. Blake seemed skeptical. Are you alright? Arda, you're acting all weird and cagey again. You better not, because if this becomes a part of your personality, then I would never get to tease you about your answers. He raised an eyebrow at him. Is that the one reason you don't want me to have a personality? Yep. It makes joking about your robotness a lot harder, but I digress. I'm still trying to get you a personality, don't worry. So just answer my question, please. Even if it's just with an I don't know or I just want to. No, I don't just want to, seeing as there's no good reason to go to Sector 6. Blake furrowed his brows and put a hand on Arda's shoulder. And you don't need a good reason if you just want to. Come on, Arda. Straight answer. Why Sector 6? Why choose that and not like Sector 9 that's further inland, in the west? Arda looked away. I don't know. Blake paused for a good few moments, before Arda felt his hand squeeze his shoulder gently, and then pulled him towards the Imperialist. Hey, there's no shame in not knowing everything. You never had any problem with it before. As you've always said, remember, it's just part of the learning process. Or at least, I think that's something you would say. Otto would never admit it, but he felt a little amused and a lot better with that comment. And Blake was right. He had never had much problem with not knowing anything. It was a natural part of existing. He could never be all-knowing. What changed? Well, it probably had something to do with seeing that file a few days ago, finding so many things he didn't know about, and feeling the subtle changes that were taking place in his mind. Still, he figured he truly didn't need to feel ashamed. It was normal to not know something. He didn't have to be embarrassed about it at all. He had thick skin. He was quite literally immortal. As they got back to the dugout shallow cave in a snowdrift, Blake went to talk to Zhang-Wu for ways to search for the drifter, and Arda started to climb the hill to get his bridge glider he left on top. He heard bits of their conversation. So, Zhang-Wu, any idea how to look for a tiny drifter in this entire field? You still haven't told us where North Cove is. We need to get there first. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're on top of North Cove right now. You're welcome. Now, the drifter. What? Arda hauled himself up to the top of the hill, grabbing his bridge glider and walking over to grab Blake's as well. The wind blew in his face, trying to push him back, snow piling on his shoulders now that the snowdrift wasn't protecting him. He squinted against the falling flakes and saw that Blake's bridge glider had already nearly vanished beneath the snow. As he bent down to pick it up, a tremble washed through the field. He shot upright and braced himself just as an earthquake shook the snowdrift loose. An aftershock. It was like the world was spinning when the ground seemed to move while he was yanked in the opposite direction. The snowdrift came apart, and he slipped. Not that he could have kept his balance. He quite literally ate snow as he fell through a cloud of white powder, icy cold specks sticking to his skin and clothes, then melting immediately. Arda fell a longer distance than he should have before hitting the ground. He hit something hard at an angle and rolled down a gentle slope until his shoulders slammed into something concrete, landing in a flurry of snow. It was darker than it should have been. Snow still falling down gently, the air colder but no longer a furious howling wind. He could hear the whistle of it up above and squinted. Half a dozen meters, around 2 stories, above him, gentle light rays beamed down, past the edge of what seemed like a frozen dirt wall. Arda glanced around. A blanket of snow covered the bottom of a crack in the earth. The soil frozen and packed, like stone, lined the small ravine. It extended both ways until Arda lost sight of its path. The snowdrift seemed to have previously covered it up somehow, before the earthquake shook it apart and revealed it again. The crack was as wide as his arm span, and the debris that previously belonged to North Cove littered the ground. The bridge gliders had fallen next to him, but as he turned in a circle, something in the walls caught his eye. He grabbed the 2 devices from the ground before moving closer. Was that a passageway? Where the snow was sloping down unnaturally? The white snowflakes were shifted, pulled by gravity, falling like sand in an hourglass down what seemed to be a large, dark hole in the rift. Arda! Blake's voice shouted from above, echoing in the rift. With no wind to muffle or block it out, it seemed twice as loud. Arda glanced up and saw the silhouette of Blake in his ponytail peering over the edge of the crack. Are you okay? Yes, he called back. He put a hand on the wall, looking down again, and leaned over the dark hole. The size of a door, enough for a human to go through, and suspicious. The passageway sloped downwards and curved, and definitely a ladder somewhere, but it was too dark to tell heads from tails. What was that white symbol next to the door? Hang on, I'll give you a hand. Arda stepped in front of it and dug his head in, still too dark. No need. Blake, call Jean-Wu and the both of you come down here. There's something you need to see.